It's powerful, Taher, seriously. How you re-engineered the way you apply for jobs, just like what you said.
You have to start with something, build on it, measure it, and then reiterate.
This is where we got to stop and realize, okay, why was it so hard and how did you navigate it?
If you want to work out every day, having that on your to-do list might not be the best method to remind yourself to work out versus putting an alarm in the morning to wake up an hour earlier and just going to the gym, right? That could be your system to remind yourself that you need to work out.
Was it all worth it?
It's not a place, that I've said goodbye to. It's a place that it's still, in my head.
What was the trigger? What was the reason? And what happened during that period that led you to where you are today?
It was a job, trying to find a job.
How are you thinking about life now? Knowing that you have a person who relies on you 110%.
So I'm changing my system bits by bits to try and get the optimum results without making a drastic change from day one.
Was there a moment where you said, okay, I'm throwing in the towel. This is not for me?
Failure was not an option.
And we're live with a person whom I really, truly spent some time in preparing their introduction, as it was very interesting in so many different angles. And I'm very happy, very proud to bring them on into an episode here at AE Talks to discuss some of the most important questions that I guess a lot of us have from different perspectives. He's a person / an embodiment of so many different answers in my perspective that could help us in navigating or figuring out some answers to some of the most pressing questions that we may have. So without any further ado, I'd love to start off with saying the following. People love, and I mean it, love to talk about moving to Canada, but they rarely talk about the cost. My guest today left familiarity for opportunity, pushed through a brutal master's degree, searched for work during a pandemic, and built a career from the ground up. But that's not the best part. He's a chemical consultant in the oil and gas industry, a husband and a father, and someone who describes himself as a learner and an observer. And we're going to really circle back into that quite frequently this time. He values routine, clarity, and stability. In this conversation, we talk honestly about the realities of higher education, the pressure of job hunting when the world feels frozen, the identity shift from technical roles into consultative work, and how marriage and fatherhood quietly change how you think about ambition and risk. At the heart of this episode is a simple idea that challenges a lot of modern career advice: that small, continuous adjustments in how you work and live matter far more than a single productivity system or big decision. And I literally stole that from Mohammed Taher, who is my guest today's bio. So, without any further ado, I am so happy and so glad that you had the time to be on this show, Taher. So tell me, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. How about you?
Doing well. Couldn't be happier, to be honest. Couldn't be happier.
I'm happy to be here for this episode.
Absolutely a pleasure. So, Taher, once again, I would love to jump into nitty-gritty details and start with the big one, right? Where you're currently at, the decision you took to travel / migrate to Canada. I would always like to start off with this question and then move on forward. Was it all worth it?
I guess we still have to find out. It's only been 7 years in Canada right now, and so far it's been a good journey. But I think it's such a deep question that to accurately answer, I'll need to spend more time.
I plead the fifth.
it, it's definitely been worth it in a lot of different areas, right? Like I did my master's here and then shifted to, working. I've enjoyed my career so far, right? So it's been worth it from that perspective. But then again, it's been 10 days of minus 20 degrees, right? So there's ups and downs. We haven't been able to go out to do much outside for quite some time because this has been a brutal winter, right? So that's what I'm saying. I still need to wait to find out.
Interesting. So take me back to the very baby steps, right? The initial decision where you decided, okay, guess what, Taher? I think it's time to move to Canada. How did that start? What was the trigger? What was the trigger? What was the reason? And what happened during that period that led you to where you are today?
It was it was kind of a conversation between me and my father, right? He was quite supportive of me during my bachelor's degree, wanted me to do a master's degree as well. So we kind of looked at different options for universities and whatnot. And we ended up settling to the educational system in Canada, doing a master's degree there because it opens up the door for job opportunities in Canada. So I came to Alberta specifically because I wanted to study chemical engineering, and this is like the heart of the oil industry in Canada, right? So it was kind of back and forth between me and my dad until I decided, you know what, I'm going to start applying to universities in Canada. At the same time, I had a group of friends that we all applied together. We all went to the same university. So it kind of worked out in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah, well, uh, the beautiful part behind this is the support system. I guess
Yeah.
you had it internally and externally, and that was something that a lot of people sleep on. Is the support, how strong your support system is, moving into a country like Canada, where I guess it was your first time to travel to Canada. Then
Yeah,
uh,
it was.
it was right. But this is how it started, right? So you finished your bachelor's degree in Malaysia, and then you decided to travel to Canada to pursue your master's degree.
Mhm.
While doing this, was it under the perspective of traveling for a master's degree, hence a job? Because that's how practically capable you may be to get a job in Canada later on down the line when you get the Canadian education. Or was it under the perspective of migrating in the first place? So I would settle down in Canada. I would study in Canada, and that's going to open some doors for me to stay in Canada and probably pursue a career and settle my life there. Or was it just initially an idea of studying, finishing off, and then doing your own thing, probably back in the Gulf where you were based initially, like Dubai? So what was it like back then?
No, it was part of the process thinking of I want to study in a place that has job opportunities for what I'm studying for. That's why, again, I chose the University of Alberta because it's so close to the oil and gas markets. So I came with the idea of I want to study here, start my career here, and then see where this takes me.
Mm-hmm. Right. I
Yeah.
see. Wow. And I'm assuming you were traveling, and then were you married then, if I may say it?
So I met my current wife in university at my bachelor's degree. So it was a few months before I decided to leave and go to Canada. So most
Uh,
of the beginning part of our relationship was long distance, unfortunately, but we endured that.
that's interesting. So, how did that affect your decision traveling to Canada, knowing that you're a person now who's committed to a relationship?
It's a little bit different because I when I met her, I had already had the plans to go to Canada, right? So I already had an offer from a couple of universities, and I was just trying to choose which city I wanted to go to. So we kind of met under the circumstances. It was kind of, we didn't know where it was gonna go. We didn't know if this was gonna last, right? Until I left to Canada, and that at that time we didn't even know when was gonna be the next time I'm gonna see her, right? So could be a year, could be 2 years, could be 5 years. So we left with a sort of positive mindset in terms of we're gonna try and make it work and hope it does end up working. And happy to say it did end up working. It wasn't easy, especially through COVID, because that was like you couldn't even travel to see each other. But beyond that, it kind of built a strong foundation, I would say, for the marriage.
I like how long distance relationships, in your perspective, helped build a strong foundation for today's marriage. That's a deep one. Usually people feel a little flawless when it comes to relationships that have been on a long distance perspective, and they go like, okay, this didn't really work out. And the probability of long distance relationships, like, while you were saying it, we hope it works because of the probability that this may not really work. So the fact that it did, I truly hope that really resolves back into your current marriage, because I know that you're a father now, right? You're
Yeah.
a father of a young daughter, and that's something so nice and so cute to realize nowadays. Um, yeah, before jumping into fatherhood and before jumping into more details about marriage and traveling together later on down the line when you guys have the opportunity to meet, I want to circle back to the master's degree and how you emphasized that your master's was a lot harder than you anticipated, given
Mhm.
that for those who do not know Taher, he's a person who does take academia very, very well and does take academia very seriously. So, a person coming from that perspective, whom already knows what academia is and takes it very seriously, saying that it was hard and difficult, this is where we got to stop and realize, okay, why was it so hard and how did you navigate it?
Mhm. You'd think it's chemical engineering is chemical engineering, but chemical engineering in the British system is a little bit different than in the Canadian system, right? It's the way they try to teach you that information. I would say the British system is very practical in nature, whereas the Canadian system is very theoretical in nature, especially when it comes to a master's degree. But beyond that, I had a different system at Nottingham where I knew how to study, manage my time, prioritize things so I can actually excel at what I'm trying to study. Um, Coming into the Canadian system, it was a bombshell because I had to rework my system. So as a quick example, like I'm the type of person where I might skip lectures and go to the library to study because I find it more valuable for me to teach myself than a specific professor. Right? Not every class is going to be like that, but I do that in certain classes. I couldn't do that here because there's a lot of information that is just given by the professor that's not in the books, that's not in the lecture slides, and that kind of I had to adjust my system because of that. And the same thing is, the level of how they grade you. You're competing with people doing their masters, but people doing their PhDs. I had one class reaction design where we were 10 people. 5 of them are PhDs that are studying reactors as their specialty. So I'm competing on with those people for the grades because if you get a 90, that's not simply an A, right? It's if everyone gets a 90, then a 90 becomes a B. So you have to compete and do better than them to actually score well. So that was the big shock for me. I took me a whole year to adjust to it. So my final semester is a semester where I had the highest grades because I got the time to adjust my system.
Wow, interesting. So, I like how you put the differentiation between the British system is more practical and the Canadian system was more theory based,
Yeah,
right? And reworking that system. So, your master's degree, how long did your master's degree go for?
it was a year and a half.
A year and a half. So I'm assuming your last semester was towards the end. So if that were to be a couple of months before you graduate, it took you a year to rework that system you've built across the 4 years or 3 years back in your bachelor's degree.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell me more. How does that work? Because I believe this is a very interesting takeaway a lot of people can learn from. How do you rework your system?
I'm a big believer of trial and error, right? It's kind of your natural response is always to find an optimized path to the best result, right? Where it's the same way that your body works, kind of same way your brain works. You're trying to optimize. So I don't spend too much time trying to change my system. I'm sort of just changing a little bit by little bit and seeing what feedback loop I'm getting. So I'm gonna start attending more classes. I'm gonna try and see if that actually benefits me in terms of am I understanding more or am I going to class just getting so bored that I'm sitting on my phone, right? I'm gonna start spending a little bit more time on assignments where I'm researching the question rather than just trying to find an easy solution. So part of doing that, I'm learning a little bit more about what the professor wants me to learn, right? So I'm changing my system bits by bits to try and get the optimum results without making a drastic change from day one. Because that's not how I work. Like I can't just change my whole system right away. So it's bits and bits to get to that point. So that's why I'm saying it took me a whole year. The first semester was a big shock. The second semester was adjusting into it, and then the summer semester is when I actually like it was a goal. I need to fix what I'm doing to get um, at least very high grades.
Wow. I like the feedback loop analogy. But I remember we were taught that back in our bachelor's degree during engineering, right? Feedback
Control
system,
systems.
the control systems, right? Was it called
Yes.
PIC? Right? It was something like
Yeah.
the PIC, right? Good. I'm still an engineer. Right. So I'm thought attested now. Right. Um, that's all well. That's all great. But there's a question I really want to know the answer for. I can only imagine the shock that you got when you moved to Canada and you realized how the curriculum is completely different, the methodology of teaching is completely different, the instructional design is completely different. Talk to me about Taher the human being. Was there a moment where you said, okay, I'm throwing in the towel, this is not for me?
It wasn't an option for me. I thought a little bit about what can I do, right? Um, I mean, I had good grades coming out of my bachelor's, so I knew I didn't need to be the A-star student in my master's. So beginning was I need to survive this, endure it, and graduate so I have my master's because there's no other option. I can't just quit university. I'm already invested. I've already, there's money, time, and effort that's gone into this. I'm already way too far from my family, so I'm not gonna just give it up because I'm too tired of it. But there were moments. There were moments that I didn't know what was gonna be the next step. And I'll give you an example. I was learning material thermodynamics, which is sort of the most advanced form of thermodynamics. And at some point, my professor told me, "You're not gonna pass. You're 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 probably gonna have to repeat this course or choose a different course, right?" Um, the reason for that was I went to an exam, a midterm, and I think I probably got 10% out of 100. I barely got any grades out of that one. And that midterm carried, I think, 30% of the whole course. So right away, you've lost 27% of your marks. So I knew that was going to be tough. But I think I spent 2 full weeks going to the library every day, trying to rework how I'm studying for this course, just so that I come to the final and then I got a really high grade, so that in the end of the day I got a B rather than fail. So there's no option for me that I'm just gonna let myself fail because that's gonna have way too many ramifications to my life. That time I was dating my current wife. I wanted to get married, so failure was not an option. I had to keep going. I had to do my best.
And this is very, very powerful thought. I guess And this is something I personally am a huge proponent of. Sometimes you'd need to put yourself in a certain circumstance to push you forward. So I'm only imagining your life back then. You're a person who's promised your current wife and yourself that you want to lead a healthy, loving relationship in the future and you want to marry her. That's a responsibility. Your parents have already invested in your master's degree. You're already in a completely different realm, different continent, uh, has a lot of expectations on your shoulder as well. I can only imagine the amount of pressure that made you result into an idea of failure is not an option. That in and of itself is a beautiful statement. And how you said there were moments where you felt that this is not for you, or that professor of yours where it clearly said you should repeat that course. Uh, that wasn't taken lightly. Tell me more about how did you deal with it when your professor told you you're not going to perform well? You went to the library, reworked your system, and then you surprisingly, I'm not surprised, to be honest. I know who you are, so I'm not surprised you were able to pull it through. But I want to visit those nitty gritty details, like throughout the day. How did that go? Like you just shut the door right after him. Okay, you got this piece of the bombshell, or like as they say. How did that go? Psychologically, mentally, what was your system?
I mean, it's kind of a blur right now. I don't remember specific details, but I remember that moment he told me that you're not gonna pass, and a feeling inside me like it's like a emptiness, right? Like, am I gonna fail? Right? That's the first thought that comes to you. And I remember leaving, and you know, from the time it takes me from the professor's office all the way back to the house was like 25 minutes. So that's 25 minutes I'm just overthinking, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do if I end up failing this or not passing, not graduating, right? I got back home, and I remember right away, I didn't talk to any of my friends. At the time, I was living with my friends. Went straight to the room, called my current wife. Back then, we were dating. Talked to her on the phone, right? What am I gonna do? And it's a blessing to have that type of support, especially for moments like this. Everyone has different types of support systems, but that really pushed me through. Then I came up with a plan and directly went back to the university and started implementing that plan. I knew my big problem. Like I identified that my issue was I wasn't good in answering sort of graphical representation of thermodynamics. I was good in the formula, so I needed to study the graphical side, interpretations and whatnot. And so that's what I did for. I don't know if it was right away or it was a few days after, but I started going to the library with some of my friends and just spending some time opening books, understanding how do these graphs essentially work, how are they supposed to be interpreted, stuff like that.
Identifying your weakness. That's the name of the game, right? So
Yeah,
it was necessary to identify where you not doing so well, or not where you not performing so well, and you worked on it, right?
yeah,
Interesting. Because it's all good and well in theory, Taher, right? Where a lot of people are like, focus on your weaknesses and capitalize on your strengths, and all these nice self-help guru, cheesy statements that we hear online all the time. But it's very nice when you see a person practically applying this so that they could propel themselves into the next growth frontier and hence getting a B in the course and graduating from the master's degree. So, woohoo, congratulations.
thank you. And yeah,
Amazing. Yeah, tell me.
yeah, just to add on that, I mean, it is easy to say to focus on your strengths and so on. Um, One thing that's always kept me going, other than my support system, is that I've been through, unfortunately, a couple of lows in my life, and I've survived each low. And so when I'm in a new low, I know that eventually I'm gonna come out. And so all I need to do is just do what's required to get you on that path to sort of when you're out of your lows and now back into peak performance or peak happiness and whatever it is. And so I think that actually has helped me in my life in a way, because and everyone goes through that differently than other people. I've just That's been my response. I've gone through a couple of lows, learned that I've survived them, even though I didn't think I was going to survive them. And then the next low comes in, and eventually you recognize the pattern. Oh, this has happened before. What I need to do is just keep going, and I'll get out of this. And that's essentially been my formula. Master's degree or whatever it is, career wise.
Wow. Moving on and just, it's inspiring how you know that you've been through a couple lows, which is quite human nature, right? I mean, everybody goes through these moments. You're no superhuman, and it's good to empathize with yourself from every now and then that, hey, you've been through this low, and guess what? You eventually passed, and you
Yeah,
eventually move back to your peak. It's like a sinusoidal wave, right? Where you go from
exactly.
peak to trough, right? And that's just general human nature. And if you were to speak to a person right now whom is within their low point in life, in their career, in their relationship, in their life, in whatever facet of life or whatever discipline of life they're currently facing a low point, would you tell them the same piece of advice you just shared, your formula that eventually it's going to pass?
Yeah, and I mean, I heard this quote. I can't remember from who, but there's no point in worrying about something you can't control, right? If you're in a low in in an area that you really don't have control over, right? Say you're sick, right? You can't control whether you're gonna get better today or tomorrow. There's no point in worrying about that. It's The focus should be on what am I gonna do to get out of this, and that's the same advice I would give um, a student or someone starting out in their career. Don't worry about something that's not in your control, but try to work on everything that's in your control.
Hmm. Amazing. I love that. It's just like the takeaway of the episode so far, everybody. Do not worry about something out of your control. And I guess it requires some reflection to internalize the true meaning of this, because there's a lot of points that you think you can control, but they're not, and they're made to not be controlled.
Yeah.
So when you realize that you're only focused on what you have within your hands and what you can control, I guess that really what propels you to the next area or to the next uh, point in your
Mhm.
life. Amazing, Athad, amazing. Um, so now we're speaking to Taher, who graduated from his master's degree, finally said to that professor, I'm going to put a beep right there. Like, I got this, right? So now that you graduated, right? So walk me through the graduation ceremony. You're happy. You did it. How did that go?
There was no graduation ceremony. It was COVID.
Ah,
So
I'm so sorry.
yeah.
All right,
No,
right.
it's all good. I finished my degree officially, I think it was January 2020, but I didn't get my degree until I think April that year. And then there was no graduation, right? 2020 was COVID. Um, so it was a little bit sad that we didn't get a graduation ceremony, but I was happy with my experience graduating from my bachelor's degree, right? My parents flew in with all my sisters. So that kind of fulfilled me. So that in my master's degree, I was like, It's fine. It's time to find a job." So let's
Right.
on to the next one. Yeah.
The next one, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, and this is a very important section right now in our talk where you've passed through your master's degree during COVID, right? And this circles back again to the introduction where you finished your brutal master's degree and you moved into the pressing need of finding a job in Canada during COVID.
Yeah.
I can already see the amount of no, 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 no. Like the no, like the it's very easy. That's the easiest reflex that you would automatically have. I want you to take me easily here and walk me like a 5-year-old baby. How was that experience like?
It's Let me go back a little bit. before graduating, I started looking for jobs 3 months before I knew I was going to be done, just to test the market, see what kind of companies are interviewing me, who's interested in Taher, right? And it was a really good experience because I had an interview almost once a week, sometimes twice a week. And by the time I was done with my degree, I kind of narrowed it down. There's three types of industries that are actually interested in me. Those are the type of industries I'm actually getting interview after the interview. Whereas there's certain jobs no one's even like recognizing that I even applied. I don't even get a response, right? And so I had a couple of interviews lined up, and everything is moving. It's kind of smooth flow, and then COVID hits, and there's no more interviews. And the companies I interviewed with, I'm following back with them, and there's no update. No one's answering. I don't know if they were let go or whatnot. And so March of 2020 was just silent. I think that was kind of one of my lows in essence, because I did all this, I did my bachelor's and my master's, and now we've got a pandemic. What am I going to do? Right? It's just an unfortunate circumstance of the times of my graduation, right? Um, but I had to again change the system, change what I'm doing. At the time, I was applying to maybe 5 jobs a day, but after March, after the dead silence, it came to a point where it was a job trying to find a job. Right, I had to spend 4 or 5 hours a day finding ways. Right, so I was iterating my resume once a week with my good friend Tarek. Me and him were in the same boat. We're reiterating our resumes every week. We're trying different strategies, trying to reach out to different companies. And then that's when I realized he got a job offer, and it was a town that was 5 hours north of Edmonton. I've never heard of them. And all I've ever heard about that town is that it's really cold, but the money is good. So I was like, okay.
Okay.
He got a job there, and so I followed him right after. I went after him by a month, and I was like, I know I don't have a job, but this is a town that's hiring. Whereas Edmonton, where I was living, there was no jobs. No one was hiring at the time. Moved there, and then within a month, I had 2 offers, and I was like trying to accept whatever the best offer between the two. So that's kind of summarizes 1 year of effort of job search, kind of condenses it in 5 minutes.
Wow. So before I ask you the question I really want to ask, so it took you a year post graduation to actually land yourself a job. Is that correct?
No, it's a year because I started 4 months before I graduated. So I started in October, and I started working in the next year's October.
Right. I see. I see. So, so we could say a good 3/4 of a year to
Yeah,
get you landed a job. And everybody listening to us, this is a person whom graduated from a top 1% university in the world, which is the University of Nottingham, and then moved on with exceptional degrees and performance. Number two, he moved into Canada, into one of Canada's most sought after universities, into a town that speaks his profession, and still couldn't find a job. Not only that, he took him around 3/4 of a year, around 9 months to get himself a job. You can only imagine what's going through his mind, even whether he says it or not. Just like what he said, I'm a person who graduated from this university, done that, and it's his due right in every way, shape, or form, and he still did not find a job. And look at what the interesting part is. And by the way, I think I am going to name this episode as Change Your System, because I believe this is the thing that's speaking to your brand identity right now. It's powerful, Taha. Seriously. How you re-engineered the way you apply for jobs. Just like what you said, a job to find a job, right? So you automatically got yourself a job to find a job. And here's what I want to ask, right? So it took you to change your entire town five 5 hours, just like you said, north to an area where you have no idea about, but you know that they pay well. But I'm quite sure that wasn't your main reason. Your main reason was that they hire in the first place, right?
exactly.
So there's a job there, right? I'm officially unemployed. I need to get a job, given the responsibilities that you're banking on and what you're going through. Amazing. And here is something that I want you to further help me understand sometimes applying to a job is not enough because a lot of people bloat nowadays and blow their horns like I applied to 100 jobs this month and I applied to 1,000 jobs this year and I did this and I did that. But I think you did differently. If you moved towns,
Yeah.
that is not an easy decision to make specifically to a more cold place. And we're thinking of like -40 right now, -20 degrees Celsius. Like cold to me is like 2 degrees Celsius and I'm already freezing. You know?
Yeah.
So I can only imagine. So tell me more about was that decision easy to make? What was convincing you to do so? Were there any risks at hand if you were to go there and not find anything else?
Not really. There wasn't much risks. I mean, I was already unemployed, right? I'm not gonna
Mhm.
go there and not find a job is the same thing as being here and not finding a job. The difference was it was kind of intuitive to me, right? I've spent some time. I've applied to jobs in Edmonton. There's no future for me here at the moment. So I know a friend of mine that's found a job in Fort McMurray, which is the town 5 hours north. I know they're hiring. I can see on LinkedIn and other websites that there's jobs, but I'm not getting interviews. So I knew that my best shot is move there, be a resident of that town, and trying to meet people, trying to connect, apply, and try and find a job. Right. So the moment I went there, I joined a football club. We play football every Friday. I was trying to understand or reach out to the community so people know who I am and I know who they are. And then it just so happened that, two companies found it really brave that I moved towns without a job offer just to find a job. And then they both offered me a job. And it was a blessing I made that decision.
Wow. I love that. I love how you took that the first step. And that's what I would love audience to take away is that yeah, sometimes you can be Mr. Superman, but that would still not take you anywhere unless you
Yeah.
still do the heavy lifting. Maybe the heavy lifting to Taher was moving towns. Maybe the heavy lifting to you is to learn a new degree or to get a new course or to expand your network. Right? It's that movement out of your comfort zone where all growth happens is what matters. So you're at Fort McMurray at the moment and you got yourself a job. Huh. Finally, now you could do what you like doing, I'm assuming. And and I'm gonna get into that. Um, so Fort McMurray, how long did you spend there? What were the challenges that you faced, given that you're already right now officially employed in your profession?
I spent about 3 years in Fort McMurray. Um, and temperature there is extreme, right? So Edmonton is already known as a place that's really cold, but Fort Mac takes it up a notch and it gets even colder for longer with short days, right? So if you're living in a place that's typically -20 throughout the winter, um, sunrise is at 9 a.m., 9:30, sunset is at 3:30 p.m. It can have an impact on you. Um, but the first 2 years, I was kind of fueled by, I'm finally working, right? I finally have a job. I'm making money. And I wanted to get married and pay for all the expenses that come up. And then we ended up getting married. So it was all working, working well throughout the whole process. But then at some point, 2 years and a half after, even though the town does pay better than other places, I realized it's not enough. Um, it's there's a lot of factors that came to play, but it is a town with about, at the time, 40,000, 50,000 people, with not much entertainment, with one nice cinema that's not always have the nice movies, not a lot of good food options, always cold, one nice gym, right? It's just ones of everything. You don't have options. My wife did have a Sephora, right? That's something she enjoys, and to go in there. So it's not for me, at least, it wasn't the best place to live for my younger years, I'd say. And that's when I decided, it's time to move away from that town, and look for jobs in Edmonton. and that's what I did.
Right, right. Okay, so you spent there 3 years, and was all the 3 years married 3 years? Was that the case? So did your wife accompany you to Fort McMurray?
Yes. So the first 2 years I was on my own. So we were still doing long distance because again it was COVID, and the plan was initially that we were gonna get married and move in together 2020, but obviously it took me a bit of time to find a job, and then I found a job, but I wasn't, there was a lot of travel restrictions at the time. So I didn't travel until end of 2021. And so that's when things started moving again between me and her, my family, her family, and whatnot. So then she only moved here in 2022, mid-year, and then joined me in Fort McMurray.
Right, right. Wow, so that was a challenge in of itself as well. I understand how fueled up you were. You found a job and want to get married, so you got to stack up those investments, right? So,
Yeah.
to get things done with. Um, Talk to me more about that transition now from Fort McMurray to Edmonton, because I guess this is I'm not sure if this is the shift that I'm anticipating, since part and parcel of your bio where you said how you did a career shift from chemical engineering to consultative work and consultative sales. Is that the move when you moved to Edmonton? Was that the first? Was that the shift, or was it different?
Yeah, it was kind of that way. So when I was in Fort McMurray, I was going to, those oil producers. I was going there every day. I was hands-on with a lot of, their equipment, working with their operations, working with their engineers. So I was pretty, I would say, technical, but not fully technical. So it was kind of a 50% technical, 50% non-technical job. And then as I was trying to make that shift, I mean, first I decided that the next step is to move to Edmonton, right? I decided that 9 months before I left. So I started applying again, testing the market, seeing where I can end up. And I realized right away those technical positions in Edmonton, they don't pay well, right? There was no option for me to take a significant pay cut just because I wanted to do a career shift. I had to make it had to make sense. So I started looking for jobs similar to my previous role, technical, but halfway technical. And again, realized they're they weren't paying as good as I wanted them to. And then I realized going into more of a consultative sales business development role, um, that's the type of role where I can actually earn more if I perform well, right? I didn't like how a lot of jobs would give you certain base salary and then that's it. I like to get offers where, you get a base salary, but then you can get a 25% bonus here. If you do this, you can get a 10% bonus if you do that. Because then there's always ways for you to make more money if you're doing well, rather than just doing your job and getting paid and that's it, right? That's when I did my shift. And then I joined Univar 2024, and that job is much less technical. I still do a little bit of technical, but I'd say it's 5-10% of my job. 60% of my job now is just meeting people. I meet people and I talk to them, trying to find their problems, trying to offer them solutions. That's essentially 60% of my job.
Right, right, right. And then, do you enjoy it far more than the technical side? What did you learn about yourself in the consultative world?
I didn't think I was gonna enjoy this much, right? It is more fun because I'm not dealing with the same problems, right? When I was doing more technical, it's always the same problem you're trying to solve differently every month, right? It's kind of like it's a repeatable, right? With this job, I'm more so meeting different plant managers from different areas, talking to them. Some of them are really friendly, so we kind of have a relationship going. Some of them are less friendly, so it becomes very straight to business. It's My day is different day to day. The only thing that's not perfect about this job is that I travel way too often, right? So I have to travel to go meet with these people, stay in hotels, stay away from my wife and daughter. But beyond that, I enjoy the part of it where I do actually meet people, talk to them, trying to find solutions for them. And just, it's a business relationship, but also it can be a little bit of personal relationship and you're developing that as you're progressing through your career. I've enjoyed that.
Wow. Wow. Knowing who you are now, seeing you as a consultant is something I did not expect. I did not anticipate. You're a person whom I know is very well probably in designing plants and, sitting back in the operation room and making sure everything is as per quality standards. The fact that now you've reformed yourself into a consultant, that is something interesting. Was the transition easy, or did you need to prepare yourself in any way, shape, or form to perform well in this new job?
Oh, my first job set me up well for my second job, right? One of my first issues in the first job, even though it was technical, but again, it was 50% technical. There was a lot of times where I had to present to like senior leadership from some of my customers. And I remember the first 6 months, every time I go in there, my stomach is kind of upset. I know I'm nervous. I need to perform. And so one of my big issues, I mean, two primary issues I used to have was I talk too fast. So a 1 hour meeting, I would do it in 20 minutes. And then just look at everyone like, you have any questions for me? Right? Like, and that wasn't the right way. I had to go slow to sort of tell them the story I wanted to tell them when I'm presenting something, right? And then the second issue was my thought process, my train of thought was very much engineering. It was not business, and that had to shift. And so to me, I can tell you, you have problem A, and B is the solution for A. So you should take B and be happy about it. That's not how business works, right? I have to offer you B, C, D, tell you the advantages of, and so change that kind of system. And so I struggled with that in my first year, but then kind of, as you're progressing, you're gaining experience, you're learning your own sort of unique way of doing things. That set me up well that when I got into a more consultative business where most of the time I'm just talking to people trying to convince them of my ideas, it helps me that now I can speak their language. I'm not just speaking to an engineer. I know how to talk the business conversation to a certain extent, right?
Hmm. Interesting how your first job at Fort McMurray, right, helped you set up yourself to better position. Still, going through the learning curve, of course, of failing at first and then knowing how things are done and building this business repertoire, right, of how to deal with things generally. That's all well and good. Where do you see yourself today, Taher? Now that, how long have you been doing this consultative work?
For 2 years now, almost.
2 years. So it was
Yeah.
Fort McMurray, then Univar, then what you're doing right now at the moment. Was that the flow? Was that the flow?
Yeah. Univar is what I'm doing now.
Univar is what you're doing right now.
It is the consultative work. Yeah.
It's the consultative work. Amazing. Now that it's been a year and 3 months or a year and a month since you've had a new family member in your very small family.
Yeah.
Um, um, ربي يحفظها لك صراحة. What I'm trying to say is, now talk to me about the mindset shift of Tahir, who was single and now married. I know this as a married person, I know that this is something, and having a daughter or a son is something completely else.
Yeah.
How has that impacted you? How are you thinking about life now? Knowing that you have a person who relies on you 110%. How's that affecting your decisions? How's that affecting your life call outs? What's going on there?
They people typically tell you how big of an impact it'll be, but I think every person has to go through it to understand it, right? Because it's not it's a very unique experience, right? You only become a father just once, right? You can have multiple children, but that shift of not being a father to becoming a father, it only happens once, right? So it's a big shift, and I think it took me maybe 4 or 5 months to actually get into that reality where like it's my natural now that I'm a father. I know I'm a father every day. I'm a father, right? First 3 months, it's so hectic and chaotic and new to you that it's sometimes you forget, right? It happens, sometimes you're like,
Who is
oh
this
yeah, I
person?
have a father. Yeah, like you're not gonna forget you have a child, but you forget you have a responsibility of a child, right? It can happen. An easy example of that is the first maybe 4 or 5 days, I didn't change any diapers, right? It was chaotic. It was my wife and her mom taking care of my daughter. And I'm just like, should I feed her? Oh, you guys are good? I'm okay. Like, I'm just gonna give you your space, take care of her. And then 4 or 5 days later, that's when I started coming in. They started asking me for help, and then I got into the process. She was the first person I changed diapers for. I've never changed diapers to anyone else before, right? So all that it's a process, right? And as you go through that process, it starts to settle down, and then you start seeing that impact you, right? So for me, I'd say I'm probably 100% more driven now than I was a year ago. Because now I'm not only thinking about my own like wants and needs, but I've got two other people that I'm trying to satisfy their wants and needs, right? My daughter's gonna grow up at some point and want more stuff and need more stuff, and right. So throughout that process, that's affected me by making me way more driven than I would have been otherwise.
100%. Wow. I like how you factored this into the denominator of the drive. So it's the
Yeah.
main reason why a lot of people, when I interviewed a lot of different people, they say, the main reason I wake up today, or it's the main reason I remember my calling. It makes me go the extra mile. Things of that sort are very nice when you bind them with something you actually care about.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful when that thing that you care about is your very own son or daughter, right?
Exactly.
It's really, really nice. So now that you're a father, right? And you're a working professional, you're a consultant in Canada, how is it that you're currently navigating life with being in Canada generally? So a person like yourself, for those people who do not know you, you're a person who was born and raised in the Gulf, right? In the UAE.
Mhm.
So it's a completely different continent, a completely different
Yeah.
culture, completely different arena, if I may put it that way. Now that you're all the way in the West, have you ever felt homesick? Have you ever thought of, all right, Canada, you've been great to me, but it's time? Or is Canada truly home now? And it's something that I'm very happy to be in for the rest of my life. Tell me more about that. I really want to hear that story.
I mean, this is gonna go back to my first answer. It's too early to say, and the reason for that is I'm always open for opportunities, right? Um, right now, I've lived here for 7 years, and through 7 years, you realize that you get more accustomed to the place. You start to it becomes a flow state for you, right? You know how to do things the way you did back home. Now you know how to do it here, right? You get used to it, and then you start seeing your future in it. But at the same time, um, my family is still in the Gulf. My wife's family is in the Gulf. It's not a place, I that I've said goodbye to. It's a place that it's still, in my head at some point, but it's more so finding the right time, right? And so there's times, I talk about, it's either retirement there or it's a shift, either, at the 5 year experience mark, at the 10 year experience mark. When I'm ready to start looking, I'm gonna repeat my process again, apply to jobs, see what the kind of offers are, see what industries I'm actually that are interested in me, and then see where I can go there. But it's not now. But at the same time, I can't say it won't be, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. There's no definitive. But for now, I am in Canada. I'm trying to work on the career I have here, and that's the first mindset I have. The secondary mindset is open to opportunities elsewhere if they're presented to me.
Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much an open mind of your
Yeah,
where your next move could probably be. And I guess
and the rest. Sorry, go ahead.
nah, go, please. I want to hear you, man.
The reality of things, the reason why I say that, why I don't have definitive answers for you, unfortunately, is because I've realized time and time again, I plan and things, things hit the fan. I end up have to improvise, change my plan, so on and so on. And so what I realized is it's good to have a plan A, work for it, work towards it, plan B, plan C, and worst case a D, right? D is a backup just in case, things really go bad. But at least have that in your mind. It doesn't mean you have four plans that you're working on continuously, but having it in the back of your mind that this is something potentially I might do. I'm open to this, and that. At least opens the door for when things don't go right with plan A, I can make a shift to plan B, so on and so on. That's been my experience so far. That's how I ended up in this career. This is not a career I applied for actively. It's just so happened that, A led to B, B led to C, C led to D, and then I'm here now, right?
Right.
That's why I don't have those definitive answers because my mindset is I'm gonna see how things go, trying to make the best out of whatever comes my way. And where I end up is gonna be based on what ended up being presented to me as an opportunity that I ended up taking.
Interesting. Taher, I need to know your definition, or where is this quote coming from? Where you particularly said small developments in your day in, day out, in the bio that you sent me,
Yeah.
are much more important than big system decisions that you should take in life. I want you to share with me an example. I want you to tell me, why did you come up with this statement and how practical is it in your life? Why small changes or small developments on a day-to-day basis by far outweigh a big decision movement or a system change or what have you?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's based on my experience, what's worked for me. Um, but I'll give you an example. Uh, since my bachelor's, right, either year one, year two, one of them, I started looking into productivity systems, trying to sort of increase my performance or productivity level, right? And so if you imagine that 100% is your peak, typically you're operating between 70 to 80%. I wanted to get that 70 to 80% to be better and better because that's where you typically operate, where you're not actually draining yourself, but you're still performing, whether it's, trying to study, trying to work out and gain muscles, trying to lose weight. You're always at that 70 to 80% mark in your life where um, what you're putting into something to get a goal out of it that you want, right? So it started with university days trying to find those productivity system, and I realized every time I make a shift, I don't last, right? I spend a weekend and then I give up and I go back to my typical habits. That can be whether I'm working out a new program, right? I'll stick to it for a week and then realize this is not a program for me, and then I'm going to try a different workout program. It's not going to work out, and I keep changing it. And so what I realized over time is as long as I'm making those small changes in my life, eventually when I look back, yes, I may have not stuck to a same workout program for 3 months, but I've been working out for 3 months because I've been trying to change what works for me. So
Okay.
there's still a positive. I've do this a lot in my career because I mean everyone has a to do list system. I've gone through maybe 10 different systems that I used. Last year I tried Notion and different systems in Notion. It did not work for me. I switched to OneNote, and then in OneNote I use different types of like ways to track your priorities. Can't remember the name, but there was a system that had a front burner, a back burner, and two different options, and you classify your to dos, and then so on. I keep changing these every month and a half, because I realize, okay, this is not working well for me. I'm gonna change the system in this area and do it this way in that area, stuff like that. And I've realized, when I look back, all the way to Taher in my bachelor's degree, 9 years ago, maybe, it's very different, right? I'm much more in tune with how I get things done, that it becomes second nature. And that point makes it just so much easier to do. And so that's kind of why I wrote those small changes, because my current system is not it's not a stable system. It's still changing to this day because it works for me in a lot of ways, but in other ways it doesn't. So I need to always just adjust a little bit. Sometimes I'm doing something worse, so I have to go back. Sometimes I'm doing a little bit better and I stick to it, right? That's kind of the reason why I wrote that.
See, actually, this is a very good segue because you spoke about to-do lists, right? And how important they are, especially, I mean, I'm a person whom I cannot imagine my life without a to-do list nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's I'm getting old, so I'm forgetting things, or is it because priorities and I'm mismatching things and scheduling, and you got a very busy day, fluttered with a lot of people and a lot of different things to do. I want to hear your take on a to-do list. And imagine a student were to hear you out now and they're about to get into university or about to graduate from university. A person who wants to prioritize their life, schedule their errands, and do things. What would you tell them? What tools would you share with them? What piece of advice would you pass down to them so that they could learn from what you've been through?
I mean, the first thing is to start doing something about it, right? If you want to have a schedule, right, you have to build a schedule. I would say start on YouTube. There's a lot of famous people, Thomas Frank, a couple of the other different YouTubers, Ali Abdal. I've watched them. I built my system based on what they recommended, but it looks so different than what I built it, right? So you start with a system and then track it for a week, see what went well, what didn't go well, and then you start iterating there. The most important step is to start and then to hold yourself accountable and measure your successes and failures in that system so that you know what to work on, what not to work on. As a quick example, if you want to work out every day, having on your to list might not be the best method to remind yourself to work out versus putting an alarm in the morning to wake up an hour earlier and just go to the gym, right? That could be your system to remind yourself that you need to work out. Whereas someone else would have it in their to-do list and then they have this itch that they need to cross off every to-do. So they'll do a small workout just to cross it off. It works for them, but it might not work for you. And so you have to start with something, build on it, measure it, and then reiterate.
That's the engineering way of thinking, everybody. So if anyone wants to know
Yeah.
how to engineer things, that is the way to go. Especially when you hear the word reiterate, right?
Exactly. Error. Yeah. Trial and error.
Trial and error, 100%. It just reminds me how you circled back to the intro, right? And you spoke about the whole feedback loop. Right, Taher, some questions I've been getting, honestly, and when I shared with a couple of friends and a couple of people from the audience as well, and they got to know who you are. These were some questions asked that I would like to share with you, right? So, Canada, hot topic, right? You're a Middle Eastern man leading a Middle Eastern family now and been living in Canada for 7 years. So I can only imagine the cultural differences and probably some of the pressures that you may facing, let alone the weather and let alone the fact I personally have never seen snow in my life. So I'm assuming that was the first time you see snow too, but maybe,
Yep.
yeah. so so it's a huge difference, it's a different pedestal. So the question comes up to be if a person or a family are thinking to migrate to Canada, right? To seek XYZ, right? What will your piece of advice be for them?
If you know someone in Canada, it always helps to know someone living in the city you're about to go to, right? It's gonna save you a lot of time and energy, and you'll have friends already before you move. But obviously, that's not always the case. Not everyone has people they know. So there's a couple of sort of attractive cities, I'd say, to people deciding to move to Canada. Edmonton is not typically one of those attractive cities because of how cold it is. So you have to do your research, understand where your industry is. right? If you work in pharmaceuticals, you have to go to BC, British Columbia. You're not going to find a job. It's not going to be as easy to find a job in Edmonton or Calgary or Toronto as it will be in British Columbia, right? That's where the industry is. If you want to work in steel, you have to go to Ontario. You have to understand that market and then target your job search based on the market. Start to understand, what the companies require. But obviously, if you have a friend somewhere, that always helps. Did this answer it, or am I missing something?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So having a person you may know in the country would help. Um, and this takes me to a follow-up question, honestly. What should they take care about, or what should they take care of, perhaps? What are the areas? Because you see a lot of people romanticize migrating to Canada to get the passport or to get the PR and to live a better life and the healthcare and what have you, which there are a lot of reservations on, and it's not all pony tails and rainbows. And I'm quite sure you'd argue the same thing. However, people just tend to romanticize the West to a very large
Yeah.
extent sometimes. And here's what I believe I would love your help in. How could you debunk this romanticization, right? And at the very same time, what would you tell them to take care of? What is it that they may think they know that they do not know when they come to Canada?
It's very difficult to prepare someone for that type of mindset shift because some people are very adamant with the way they think and so not easily convincible. The thing is, it's easy to think of it as, there's always things that are a little bit better here and there's always things that are a little bit worse, but there's things that are much better and then there's things that are much worse. And you won't get to understand that until you sort of either had to live through it or seen someone live through it, right? So I'll give you an example. In the Middle East, healthcare is not typically given for free at a high quality way, whereas in Canada, it's pretty high quality healthcare, right? But what it lacks and what people don't understand is, typically the wait times or getting access to that healthcare is not easy. So you may think, I'm getting access to high quality free healthcare, which is good if you get into an accident and you're about to die. But if you're suffering from a knee issue, right, you can't walk because your knee hurts you, you may get stuck waiting 2 years before you see a doctor. There's a balance. So that's where I say there's things that are much better, things that are much worse, some things that are a little bit better, some a little bit worse. Because and Canada is very different than what you would classify as the West. Each one is a little bit different, and you get to see that when you live in it. But they have a lot of similarities, right? If you're moving from one place in the West to another place in the West, there are small differences, not big differences as if you're moving from Asia all the way to Canada. The best advice I'd have for someone is, try to talk to people that live there, try to understand what they go through, and then try to assess, are you okay with that type of lifestyle? And then, you can always watch videos, of people filming their day in Vancouver or Edmonton to try and get an idea for what life is like, a grocery store or walking down the street, downtown Edmonton versus, those type of things. Watch videos, you'll get an idea. It's easy to romanticize Canada, but then I'd say it depends on your priorities and what you enjoy in life, what you prioritize in life, and what you care about.
Hmm. I like how you utilize this oxymoron, as they say, where a little things here and a little things there, and much better here and much worse there. Um, just like how I think anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah,
You said it very nicely. Depends on your priorities and what you're willing to sacrifice and what the trade-offs are, right? And just play your cards at the same time. Hmm. So remember when I asked you, was it all worth it in the beginning?
yeah.
Remember that? Now that I've had a better understanding of who Taher is, and to an extent how they're roughly managing their their life. Another question comes up is, I know this is pretty much industry specific, but what's your philosophy in managing, investing money?
Managing your own investments.
Investments, managing money generally, saving up, that area, that area. I like the smile.
I mean, because I mean, it's very natural to me to say that you need to try something and iterate, because that's exactly what I do. Right,
Right.
my investment strategy 3 years ago is not my investment strategy today, because my priorities change, or what I've what I understand of the market has changed. So when it comes to money, let's start with that. I'm someone who's married. My philosophy when it comes to managing money in a marriage is to be open, to be to try and be fluent in each other's languages when it comes to how you spend money and how you save money. Right? It might come easy to you to splurge more often on clothes and whatnot versus her, or the opposite, right? That's been a trial and error for me and my wife. Where I what I was 3 years ago with how I manage my money is very different than what I do now. So I've changed that a lot. And but what's been consistent is I've been very open about how I budget, about how we spend money and how we save money and how we invest money with my wife, just so that I have that support system that
Yeah.
that doesn't that ends up being a positive effect on the overall house, right? So that's kind of what I've done with my wife over the last 3 years. When it comes to investment, same thing. I've changed it a little bit. In the beginning, I was primarily focused on the S&P 500. I kind of moved away from that for a little bit, started investing in individual stocks. Then I moved a little bit out of that to a global index. I've changed that throughout the years, and for example, one of the highest performing stocks I've invested in, I think it was 2021 or 2022, was a gold mine in Toronto, right? So all they do is they mine gold. That's their job. That's what the stock is. When I bought it, I had put 20% of my investment portfolio into it, and first 2 years they weren't doing really well. It's just average 2-3% a year, but because gold has gone up a lot this year, it's done really well, and that was kind of my hedge against the market. I was like, I'm gonna invest 20%, not in a physical gold, but rather than a gold mining company, because it's a little bit safer to my understanding at the time.
Hmm.
Changes through time.
I understand. I understand. I really love the fact that you shared the open part when it comes to finances in a relationship. And I have seen numerous issues and numerous problems always come up or always stem from the idea of misalignment and miscommunication, specifically when it comes to finances, specifically in a married household. And the fact that you brought up the whole open mindset and being fluent, and I love that term, being fluent in each other's languages. Like, I'm gonna literally steal that from you. Somehow, some way I'm gonna utilize it. Being fluent in each other's languages, because that's the bitter truth. Everybody has their financial language. And if you care very much about the person in front of you, you should really learn about how they should manage or learn their financial language generally. So having that open mindset or open language is very, very interesting. And I can actually hear Celine actually in the background. Is that her? Is that her?
Yeah. I thought it was gonna be do better at
But it's okay.
covering
Don't
that
worry
subject.
about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it at
Yeah.
all. At all. Um, so yeah, being fluent in each other's languages, very important. Um, and the fact that you brought up the idea that because you do this, it reflects back a support system so that your wife or your husband knows what's up and where we're going and why we're budgeting and why we're not spending much here and why we're spending much there. That really brings up a very interesting mindset, I guess. Do you think there are any downsides for this?
To
Or any
what?
cons
Being
to
open on your
being open? Yes.
Definitely, I would say depends on your spouse, right? I've been extremely lucky that not only have I found someone that, you know, I can work with, she can work with me, right? Two different aspects to this. What I do, and I've given this advice to other, couples, it might not work with every couple. There's certain trust system that me and my wife have that allows me to be this open and allows her to be this open, right? And it started all the way at that dating phase when we were doing long distance. Why it was a blessing, because all we can do is communicate. There's nothing else you can do when you're, 10,000 miles from each other. You only have communication as your means of expressing love, being there for each other. And that's why when we build that foundation, it allows us now to be open in finance. In my honest opinion, there are couples that this won't benefit them. So then again, it comes back to my original point. Have to find out what works for you and reiterate. Like, that is my philosophy when it comes to everything. And I've changed a lot. I mean, what I've done with my wife when it comes to finance has changed in the last 3 years. There's been a few months where I've told her, you're handling the budget, you're spending from your credit card. I'm just going to pay your credit card off. That's all I'm going to do. So you can have real life access to see where the money goes. I've done that for, I think, 3 months in this year. And then she's like, I don't like this. You spend on your card and then you pay it off. I'm like, okay. But it's good for her to get that exposure to see. And at the same time, she has her system, right? Which she tells me that, I think we're not going out often, or we need to, I'd like to do this more often with you, or we're doing that, right? And so then I'm like, okay, I need to readjust how I'm spending my money, change this and do that. And so that's why I say it's a two-way system where you try and be fluent in her language, she tries and be fluent in your language, and hopefully it kind of connects.
Mm-hmm. Amazing, amazing. You said it again, fluent in her language and fluent in your language. This is surreal. This is absolutely fantastic. Um, yeah, but this is the part where we get to what I call the quick fire questions.
Okay.
All right, where you only need to answer in one word right off the bat. Okay, just right off the bat. If you feel the tendency to elaborate, please be my guest. All right. So, quick fire question number one. One thing, Taher. Shall I put this in the first part? Yeah, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, because this is the most interesting part to me. All right, so let's go again. Let's go again.
Now I'm interested.
All right. One thing Taher would tell himself back in Nottingham or back in his bachelor's degree. What would you tell Taher back in the bachelor's degree? The version of Taher during your bachelor's degree? Take your time.
It's not an easy one because, I mean, am I advising myself? Am I warning myself? Am I?
The first
But
thing
if
that
I'm choosing, if I'm talking, if I'm gonna honestly say, I'm gonna say something to myself in like foundation, first year university, I would say my wife's name so that I get to meet her the moment she comes to Nottingham, rather than 2 years after she was in the university. Right? We missed out on 2 years of just being students together. I
right.
wish we could redo that.
That's amazing. I love that. MashaAllah. All right. Okay. One thing Taher is proud of.
What am I proud of? I'd say I'm pretty proud of where I've gotten in my career. Not to be arrogant in a sense, but more so, I never thought it was gonna go this way. So I'm proud of surviving all my lows and kind of making it to where I am today, where I'm much more comfortable talking about my career. Whereas, 3 years ago, I feel like I was it's a trial and error, right? Maybe I have a good job, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm gonna have a job tomorrow, maybe I don't. Where now I'm more comfortable. I know my skill set. I know. Sorry for elaborating too much, but I'm proud of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have all the veto rights.
Yeah.
Right. Third question, quick fire style. One thing people will be surprised to know about you.
I don't think everyone knows I'm a father.
I didn't.
Yeah, I'm not really public in my the way I post or whatnot. I did post on Instagram, but I don't have everyone on Instagram. But I think, like, to me, one of the reasons I'm happy to do this interview podcast with you is that it's gonna give people a little bit more information about me, especially because a lot of people don't know much about me.
I'm
Did I
glad.
answer your question?
Of course, of course, of course. I'm happy if this platform is going to help deal with that situation in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Right. Second up, not fourth up, if I may say. Okay, that's a big one. One thing Taher regrets.
I regret how long it's taken me to learn some things, right? Like, I'm gonna elaborate a little bit on this, but I mean, how long it's taken me to be a better husband, be a better father, be better at managing my finances. I'm sometimes it feels like it took me way too long to make those improvements in my life, but there's always more improvements to be made, right? And so that's I regret how long it took me to sort of develop personally, not professionally, the personal aspects of me.
Hmm. Wow. That's a first for me. Never heard an answer like that, where you regret how long it's taking you to learn something or to um, build up on a certain skill or two. That's very interesting.
I
Right.
think it's because I'm sorry.
Go, 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 please.
I think it's because, again, that engineering mindset kind of somehow flows into my everyday life, right? If I wanted to learn stock investing, and I spend 3 months focused on that, I'm gonna be way ahead than if I wanted to focus on, my wife's love language and getting better at that in 3 month time frame. One is more intuitive than me than the other, and so I
Yes.
have to put in more effort, or sort of like, or there has to be a desire for me to want to actually change and improve that in myself. That's what I say. I regret how long it takes me to develop my personal skill
Mm,
set.
wow. I like how you brought it up in a way where it says something is more intuitive to you than something else. But I guess that's quite normal because we're all wired in different ways and we all have different values, right? So our lens sees things differently and attracts things differently. Things that you need some time to build up, that's okay. And some other things that, are just you're naturally attracted to. Beautiful. This is going to be where we're concluding, Fahid. So this time is where I am going to ask you for a conclusion, right? But before that, that's to me the new part that I'm going to be applying in this podcast.
Mhm.
And you're the first whom I'm going to do this since I'm
My
honestly
pleasure.
since I'm actually exploring this whole new initiative I'm doing, I'm liking it very much. It's helping me rekindle with people I cared about one day, and it's truly something that I like saying. Um, most of us as men, or most of us as normal human beings, right? Yeah, color classified the way you want to classify it. Always busy with the next thing or the next way to make money, the investment, the whatever, how to unlock a new growth frontier. But I realized that in my personal journey, there needs to be a line. I call it the line of business, a line of business where it results back into feeding my soul and not my bank. To me, I've been very focused on my bank, and it's turned me into a person I'm not very much aligned to. So I really wanted something that helps me speak to my heart again, makes it pump
Mhm.
again. So things like that, the whole AE Talks platform is what's truly helping me doing this. So I'm very glad I found this. I'm still exploring it. So my question with all this mini introduction is going to be as follows. What piece of advice would you give your host today?
Um, Look, I'm a big podcast fan. I listen to 4, maybe 6, 7 hours a week of different types of episodes.
Wow.
So I spend a lot of time, right? When I'm at the gym, when I'm driving, that's what I do. So naturally, I've enjoyed your podcast, which means you're doing something right. I also love the fact that you're iterating a little bit in each episode. You're doing something different, and I've noticed those. And so that's, I mean, I love that, right? That's my
Iteration.
philosophy in life.
That's the engineering part of me.
That's exactly what I love. But at the same time, you're as for this type of show where you're hosting a podcast, um, you're obviously at the stage where you're selecting the guests that come. And I think in this episode, one thing you did really well was kind of direct how the episode went. Um, I think that's something you should keep doing. It's different when guests kind of um, pave the way to a different style of an episode. I'm not sure if you're understanding what I'm
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
saying,
yeah.
but being in control where you direct how that episode goes, you're doing it really well in this episode, and I would say keep doing that in future episodes. Whereas don't let the guests take that control. Essentially,
I see. I see. I see. Well noted. Well noted. Okay. All right. But this leads me to the conclusion. Your last 2 cents to give to the audience members. Imagine I'm not here. You're talking to them from your heart to the heart. Some of them might be people you know, some of them people whom you may not know. But generally, I'm quite sure anybody who reached to this very point in this episode have already seen the value, and I'm quite sure a lot of people will do see the value. So, a minute or two sharing with them your closing remarks in whatever you'd like.
puts me in the spotlight. I didn't have anything prepared, but I'm just gonna be intuitive here, right?
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind is I think people don't overestimate how people glorify their lives on social media. Not everyone's life is how it appears. A lot of people, if they're listening to this episode up to this point, an hour and a half in, probably found out interesting stuff about me that they didn't know, right? And every single one of us is unique in that sense. What we share in social media is not really what our life is going through. Um, and people glorify their life on social media, but reality is not. So that can put people down. Some people can feel like they're behind. Some people may have a false sense of confidence that they're ahead. But in any ways, we're all young. I mean, both of us are still in our 20s. There's a lot of room for us to grow into. Um, and it's a big thing for me not to give up, to always just keep going when things go sideways. And that's what I would advise a lot of people is, trying to focus on your life, trying to always improve in whatever area. Never give up, never be satisfied with where you are. Just try and improve, whether that's your social life, that's your fitness, that's your career, that's your marriage. You should never be satisfied with what you have, but be satisfied enough that you're not like still be happy, but try and improve what how your life is going. Like that's and that's just my 2 cents. Don't focus too much on social media. That can be toxic to some people. So focus on yourself, work on yourself.
Everybody, that was Mohammed Taher right here on AE Talks exclusively. Very happy, very proud, very delighted, in fact, elated to have you invest an hour and a half of your precious time. And I say precious because if you're not giving it to your daughter, it means it's precious. So, so once again, my absolute gratitude goes to you, my friend. Very happy to what you've achieved, where you are, and thank you for a very, very, very important closing remark, specifically with the one on social media. So without any further ado, everybody, that was Muhammad Tahir. Please reach out on the comments. He's a person whom I believe will be more than happy to support if he can support in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, if you like the video, hit a thumbs up. Please don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much, Lahir. You have a good one.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure.